Hello, my name is Perry Robinson, and this is a response video to Cindy Martin Morgan regarding the status of Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism in the teaching of Dr. Walter Martin and related issues. For disclosure purposes, I'm a former employee of the Christian Research Institute from the years 1990 to 1992. I'm also formally Reformed. I was Reformed or a Calvinist for a number of years, and I've been Orthodox for about 17 years now. As some of you may have heard, Mr. Hanegraaff was received into the Orthodox Church April of 2017. What I'd like to do here is address some of the issues raised and the main argument that Mrs. Morgan gives in her video, because I think she is unclear as to what some of the issues are and to what position she must be committed to and what position Mr. Hanegraaff has to be committed to. So to begin with, very quickly, she laments the treatment that Hanegraaff has received from the bottom of the barrel of popular evangelical Protestantism. Granted, some of it is really in bad taste and probably not supportable on some Protestant grounds, and there's no need to be nasty. It was entirely predictable, and so was his being dropped from the radio stations. Hank should have known it. It's just the cost of conversion. Everybody pays that price to some extent or another. He's a public figure. I'm not crying a whole lot of crocodile tears over that. Next, Mrs. Morgan testifies to Hank's character and that he's a good Christian brother and so on and so forth. This is really irrelevant. First, because even on her own grounds, being Reformed, as she claims, election is secret and unknowable. It's known only to God. So all she can speak to is whether he has a credible profession or not. I'll have more to say about that at the end of the video. There's a nice little surprise there that you'll want to wait till the end to see. Now, with respect to Dr. Martin's position, I really think this is irrelevant. Here's why. In the material that Mrs. Morgan presents, Dr. Martin leaves out the material principle of the Reformation, namely justification by faith alone, or sola fide. So either he thought it was not essential to, or he made a mistake. Either way, it's irrelevant. But the main reason why it's irrelevant is because Dr. Martin's position is not representative or determinative for the classical Protestant traditions of either Lutheranism or Calvinism. The relevant sources there would, of course, be documents like the Westminster Confession of Faith, the Belgic Confession, the Heidelberg Catechism, and for the Lutherans, the documents contained in the Book of Concord. So I would suggest she take a look at those as to what constitute essential Christian teachings, given her own tradition. So next, Mrs. Morgan refers to core doctrines. So there's the set of core doctrines. The problem is with her gloss that it's compartmentalistic. So her thinking is that there are doctrines which are these big boxes, and then there are these little boxes stacked on top of it. And the problem is, from a Protestant point of view, that Roman Orthodoxy stack these little boxes on top and add to the core doctrines in some way. Again, this is compartmentalistic. Doctrines are not isolated boxes. They're a system of interlocking parts. So you can't just change out the parts without changing the whole system. It's just not conceptually possible. Secondly, this commits the fallacy of question begging, because it assumes what is at issue, namely that Protestant distinctives, sola fide and sola scriptura, are not essential doctrines. Well, that's the question at issue. Are they essential doctrines or not? If they are, then on Protestant grounds, Mrs. Morgan's defense collapses, because then those core doctrines are denied by Roman Orthodoxy, not to mention the Copts or any other church of antiquity. More directly is the CRI doctrinal statement, specifically Article 6, which picks out sola fide as an essential Christian doctrine, as do other documents on the CRI website. Over and over again, they list sola fide, or justification by faith alone, as an essential Christian doctrine. So the question is sola fide an essential Christian doctrine or not? It's very simple. Yes, it is, or no, it's not. Now, Hank avoids answering this question directly. You can go through all the archives the last few months and listen to Hank when this question comes up. It's not difficult to find. He just dances around it. He does not say, yes, I believe this, or no, I don't, and here's why. I used to believe it. Here are the reasons why I used to believe it. I think they're wrong reasons. These are the reasons why I think those were bad or wrong reasons. He doesn't do that. He avoids it, even though his own doctrinal standards of his own private Protestant organization, which CRI still is on paper, teach that sola fide is an essential Christian doctrine. Now, what's interesting about the CRI doctrinal statement is that one of the conditions of employment at CRI is mandatory subscription to it. You have to sign this piece of paper. I did when I worked there, and so did everybody else. That includes Hank. Now, to my knowledge, Hank has not disavowed that document and his signature to it. So he still works for an organization that requires him to believe heresy according to the teaching of his own church. Now, what's at issue here is not whether sola fide is true or not. It is not whether Orthodox teaching on justification is true or not. The question is, on Cindee's Protestant grounds, does Hank profess all the essential doctrines of Christianity? On Protestant grounds, you have to say no. Now, of course, Rome and Orthodox Christians will say, well, yeah, that's not an essential doctrine. In fact, it's a false doctrine. This is not a state secret. Between Orthodoxy and Protestantism, on this point, there is no middle ground. It's all or nothing. So again, the question is, does Hank profess all the essentials of Christianity or not? Can Miss Morgan answer that question directly? Hank can't seem to. Now, lastly, a person that most of you probably don't know comes into this. His name is Raleigh DeVore. And I knew Raleigh when I worked at CRI. He was one of the radio engineers. Great guy. Blast to be around. I still love Raleigh. Have great memories. So Raleigh, if you're watching this, hi Raleigh. So Raleigh, thinking that Mrs. Morgan would expose Hank before or after he left CRI, I don't know which, gave her a box. And in this box are recordings of Hank with lie after lie after lie after lie. And he gave it to her because he thought that she would expose him. Now, as far as I know, she still has that box. Now, she's going to get on camera and tell people that Hank has this wonderful Christian character, and he loves the Lord. And oh, by the way, if she's going to say on her Facebook page that Hank still believes in the solas of the Reformation, well, Miss Morgan, I don't know you personally. I don't have a personal axe to grind with you or anything, but why don't we just release the contents of those boxes? Why don't you go ahead and release those so we can all see what the real Hank is like? And then we'll be able to evaluate your claim that Hank is this great Christian brother and loves the Lord and so on and so forth. Of course, that might be a conflict of interest a little bit for you because your husband, Rick, works for Hank, right? Yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. But why don't you just let us see what Raleigh gave you, and then we'll go from there. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.